The burnt egg roll?
Yeah, I had to rock the D Miles, man.
Hey, they forgot about this, bro.
Yeah, that's right. I have a lot of basketball questions for you because when we were coming up at SIUE, I used to go to some of your games and check you guys out.
Yeah,
I have some questions to ask about like how your time was there, but I guess before we get into that, how you been though, man?
I've been good, bro. Yeah, just moved to Cali. I guess 2018, kind of relatively recently. But yeah, been good, man. Just working, focusing on myself, trying to stay healthy. Yeah, so yeah, it was just one of those things where I was so ready for a lot of like a lot of positive change, and I was hoping that Cali would be that, and it totally has been, bro. It's been really dope. I stayed west, so I was in Santa Monica, now in San Pedro. It's been cool, man. All positives.
Okay, okay. And where were you at prior to LA? Were you in Moline or were you in Chicago or still in St. Louis area?
Yeah. So right after school, I did 3 years on the St. Louis side. So I was living over in Soulard, had a couple of roommates from college. One of my old teammates, Rob Baumgartner, and then one guy we knew mutually. And yeah, I was ready for the big city, quote unquote. I was like, yeah, let me go ahead and see what the Chicago scene's like. So
Uh-huh.
moved to Chicago 2009,
Okay.
and I was in Chicago till 2018. Yeah,
2018.
so, yeah, it was kind of crazy. It was like my first real big boy job. I was working a couple of odd jobs leading out of school, trying to find my way.
Right.
Yeah, man, bought my first car in Chicago. Like, kind of became a man post college there, so it was kind of cool. It was a nice stop. It's definitely a younger city. The city's electric in the summer. You know,
Were you kicking it with my man Bryant Daniels, B Diddy?
that's my boy. Yeah, Brian, bro. So you know how we got out of Edwardsville, man? We just carried that over to Chicago. We became actually pretty close because he's originally from the South Side and he's got a lot of family there. So he put me on. He was holding me down, invited me out. Introduced me to his family members. So like he was actually a big part of that network towards the end because he was actually still in St. Louis, I think, or maybe he took a break and was actually in Aspen. Because I think he was either Aspen or Breckenridge or something like that.
Yeah, because he was in the Air Force, right?
Yep. So he was doing that. So yeah. So it was about 2 or 3 years into my stay in Chicago that we linked up, and yeah, he was a big part of that.
Yeah, he's a good dude. He's good people. It's like I met him working at the Applebee's in Fairview Heights with him and Johnny Dackney. So
The legend.
yeah, I was working with both of those guys, and yeah, Bryant, he's always been cool, and he was visiting California, I think like a few years ago, and he like hit me up, and we actually like met up at Applebee's out here, and we had a
That's what's up, bro. Which one was it? Like L.A.? Because I know he has some family in San Diego.
um. Yeah, no, it was somewhere kind of like in like I think like Bellflower, I believe. I want to ask you like what it was like a little bit like going back to like your early days, man, like kind of like growing up in like Moline, right?
It's interesting. Yeah, so I moved a ton because my parents were both Army. So both of my parents were active duty military. I actually only did 3 years of high school in Moline, freshman year and then junior and senior year. Sophomore year, I was actually in South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina, checking out Richland Northeast was my high school sophomore year. It was an interesting upbringing because I mean life was basketball. Basketball is life. You know what I mean? Like it still is to this day. I mean I think that's kind of how we reconnected. I've been getting up shots at this local court and it's kind of beautiful scene. So I was like, man, Brady, you got to come out here and check it out. But
Yep.
it was one of those things where I had made varsity at Moline. So long story short, my parents had actually gotten a divorce coming back from Germany. So we were stationed in Germany leading into high school, and my mom was going through basically drill sergeant school. So 3 to 4 months she would have the school. Then after that, my brother and I would come back to her. So during that process, it was fall semester. I actually made the basketball team, made varsity, and so Molin's a very interesting place. It's been ranked as like one of the top high school gyms to play in the nation, like top 20.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
Wharton Fieldhouse is this humongous, like 5,000 to 10,000 seat arena. I forget how many seats exactly, where you really have like this college/professional level environment. I mean, they would pack the place. I mean, Moline had 50,000 people, so it wasn't anything to pack the gym. 4, 5, 6, 7,000 people.
Yeah.
Um,
So you didn't grow up in Moline. That was more just like your high school time, right?
yep, yep. So my mom was originally my pops is from San Diego.
Okay.
My mom's originally from Middle Illinois, born in a small town called which is
Okay.
kind of like a suburb of the Quad Cities / Moline. And so when my parents got divorced, my mom was a single parent. She was kind of going through that thing with school. She had to have me, me somewhere close to family. So that's actually how I ended up at Moline.
Oh, okay.
Had a couple of cousins there and an aunt. I really didn't know anybody. But it's kind of cool because the military like builds you up for that. I mean, I know you're probably, a little bit familiar with that, where you just kind of just switch up environments, and you can't be that person that just kind of sits back and chills. Like you kind of have to be, like, hey, what's up? I'm Justin. Hey, I'm Brandon, like, so it was like that at Moline. Like I kind of had this huge bond with a lot of guys, like right off the bat, and we clicked, and we had a couple of hoopers, man. We had just come off of, I guess coming into my freshman year, the guys who were seniors, one dude got a ride to Arizona, Travis Wilson. He signed with University of Arizona. We had another guy, Ian Hanovan, signed with University of Illinois Chicago. And within that league, you had Galesburg, Middle Illinois. They had a squad, 2 dudes that were going to Iowa, Joey Range and another dude, Rod Thompson. So long story short, like I saw this, like I'm like 13 coming in, like I'm like, man, this is like college, dudes coming out doing windmill dunks in games. I mean, it looked like Chicago Public League. Like we actually had a couple of teams make it to the state tournament and whip up on some of the more popular Chicago teams, Thornton, Fenwick. That Fenwick team had Corey McGetty.
Oh yeah. And,
yeah, it was no joke, man. I mean, you know how I used to get out, Eddie Curry, all those schools. So Eddie was kind of in that scene. I was seeing all these guys from Illinois. I'm like, this is tight, like. So
did you see Quentin Richardson ball?
Saw Quentin Richardson play. So that kid Travis Wilson was actually on the same AAU team as Q Rich.
Oh, okay. And D Miles, I think, wasn't he on that team too, or was it a different AAU squad?
It was split up. I think it was 2. I think there was a team down here that had a decent amount of hoopers, and I think D Miles might have stayed south, but I could be mistaken. I forget, because D Miles was definitely younger than Q, but they still, because I think D Miles was maybe a year ahead of us. I think, did you graduate in 01?
02.
So yeah, so I think D Miles might have been 2000.
Yeah, he was 2000. Yeah,
Q might have been right behind him. So it wouldn't surprise me if they crossed paths back then, because the scene wasn't that big.
Yeah.
It isn't like what it
it
wasn't.
I think they might have played on the same AAU team. I think the Illinois like Eagles or something. I could be mistaken, but
Hoopers, bro.
Yeah, they have their own podcast as well. It's pretty interesting.
Knuckleheads. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah,
Knuckleheads. It's so good.
Moline though, like that's the first time like I've heard Moline, but before talking to you, like I looked it up like on the map finally, and I was like, damn, this place it's like on the borderline of Iowa, right?
Yeah, I think right now it's the second largest metro in Illinois outside of the Chi. At one point, Rockford held that distinction, but since then, like it's kind of grown. It's the home of John Deere. You know what I mean? So.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
It's like a Fortune 500 company. They got a lot of jobs, so it's actually bringing a lot of industry and people to the area.
How long would it take you to drive from like Moline to like Chicago?
Oh, it wasn't bad. Hour and a half with no traffic, 2 hours with.
Oh, okay.
So it was super easy to get back and forth, and that's another reason that I think it's blown up. Regionally, it's super close to major Midwest hubs, Chicago. So yeah, it had a big city, not a big city. I'm gonna say a small city, small town feel. Like, you know what I mean? Like they had newscasts, broadcasts. Illinois is jumping for basketball. I mean, you had a lot of schools there regionally. You had Ambrose, which is NAIA. You had Augustana, which is Division III, but they've won like a Division III championship. Like those dudes are no joke. Like they would beat majority of D2 teams and give some D1 teams a run back in the day. So it was just kind of cool. It was a cool environment. You had a JUCO there, Black Hawk Junior College. You get a couple of guys coming in there, do their thing. So it was kind of alluring. As a 13, 14-year-old, I was like, man, this is kind of dope. And I had a great relationship with my coach, Frank Dexter, man. He was a stand-up dude. Looking out, he looked out for guys in the way that you probably shouldn't have been, but you know what I mean? Like, hey, you can crash at my house, like, that type of shit. Like, I was just like, wait, this, like, because I'm not, coming from an environment where you stick to your parents, as a military brat, you're moving with that unit. I mean, obviously, families are close, military families are close, but it was just something new and different. And it felt like home,
Yeah. Freshman year going into high school, how tall were you at that time?
I like to say 6'3", but I was 6'2" coming in. Yeah, 13, 14. Yeah, I was about 6'2".
Oh, okay. First dunk.
Gosh, first dunk, 7th grade, Germany. Heidelberg Middle School, bro. I'd been trying because, like, you didn't have anything else to do but try to impress the girls with hoops. I'm out here doing this and that. And then I felt I was like, oh, wait a minute. I had a little hair on my chest the day before. Now I got a little bit more. I'm like, oh, okay, so this is what puberty's like. I just kept trying, and I was never a one-legged dunker, but I found that out pretty quick because when I was trying, you emulate, the guys that you see, and but I started to go off two legs, and when I started to like kind of like get my confidence and start to feel that, you know, those gains starting to come into play, I was like, oh, I'm a two-legged dunker. So seventh grade, I poked, and I've actually got this like janky VHS tape that actually has my first poke in the game.
Uh-huh.
I thought it was so tough. I was like beating my little chest, my little bird chest, because I was probably 6'2", probably like a 140. Like, I mean, I was like this. So yeah, it was a cool experience, and it was one of those things where you realize like damn, like this isn't typical. You know what I mean? Like that's when I like started to get excited about basketball. I was like, you know, like thank the Lord, I was blessed. Like I was blessed with natural athleticism. I'm like, damn, I should use this. You know, and like started talking to pops a little bit about it. And you know, my mom, she was always, you know, big about going to school, and I realized like if I keep at this, you know, like you think about D1, D2, D3, NAIA, like there's an opportunity to get your school paid for doing this. And so that's when I kind of really fell in love with it. It was about 7th, 8th grade when I started to dunk.
Got you. So you were playing. You said that happened in Germany. So what was ball like in Germany? Was it like adjustment coming to the States, or in your mind, ball was ball no matter where I played at?
It wasn't an adjustment because like it's hard to explain this. Like people don't understand. Like, well, I think if you really think about it, like you think of like the typical military family. Like a lot of times, people aren't joining the military out of patriotism. It's more so out of necessity. You know what I mean? Like you're trying to get into college, you're trying to leverage the GI Bill, which is a program that allows you to, you know, use the military to pay for your school.
Mm-hmm.
You have a family. That's your last, you know, you're in your last leg, and you need an opportunity to support your family. So with that being said, like the dudes over in Germany weren't punks, man. Like these dudes, like Germany was probably one of the more like urban places I played. Like people were fighting constantly. Like a lot of people were getting arrested. Military families were being like, you know, like people were being sent back home because their kids were cutting up. So like that's where I actually learned my grit. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're not shying away from contact in Germany, or you know what I mean? You're not calling fouls over there. So it really wasn't an adjustment. Moline was actually softer. Like I actually feel like playing over there with these dudes and like kind of some of the guys who were just a little bit more hard nosed, like coming over to Moline, it was actually a nice adjustment. I mean, I think it actually is one of the traits that was built into me pretty early on, where if I might have not, like been in a different system, I don't know if I would have made varsity as a freshman. So.
Got you. So you were playing varsity as a freshman at Moline. What was your, I guess, a brief outline or idea of like what your experience in a nutshell was playing basketball there?
In a kind of a brief description, it was almost like the perfect like basketball movie. It was almost like Indiana Hoosiers, but 2001. And not as corny, you know what I mean? Nothing against Indiana Hoosiers. Like if anybody's watching this, like I love the Hoosiers. I love that movie.
Yeah.
It was literally like we all ran together. Like there was a time, like I'm gonna put myself on blast, but I'm old enough to not even know or not even care because I've learned from my mistakes. But it was like right after a conference game, I was super loose, going to a hotel party, shouldn't have been in the car I was in with the things that were in the car. But we had just got done beating up on a local team, like, you know, a conference rival. And they literally were like, oh, you're a Moline Hooper? Oh, it's all good. You're cool. And let us go. Like, that's some stuff that would only happen in, like, a basketball movie. So I was just like, it was just like a fantasy, man. It was just, like, one of the coolest things. Like, I still talk to a lot of these dudes to this day. I still talk to my high school coach, you know. Still follow Moline basketball, see what's going on, see who's coming up. You know, I've seen a couple of guys, you know, from when, you know, they were coming to watch me play to me watching them play and get scholarships now.
What was your best game in high school that you could remember?
Oh, that's a good. I was gonna say college. I can remember high school. Man, it had to be a conference game because we were always trying to get buckets. Our conference rival was probably against Rock Island. Rock Island was a big rival school for us. It's usually us and Rock Island. And then underneath that was East Moline, and there was a Catholic school, Almond, that was kind of like in there too. Almond was actually pretty good my senior year. They kind of gave us a run for our money, but it was probably one of those Rocky games. I know I've got a book somewhere around here. They used to catch all of us. I mean, honestly, I got caught a couple of times too. Like people backdooring me, I'm getting dunked on. But like there's one where like against this kid from Rocky, like he didn't even stand a chance. Like they just caught me in the air, just like not even blocking him, but like grabbing the basketball and me just like pushing this dude down. But yeah, it was probably Rocky. We always used to try and get buckets against those dudes. They had a kid that actually made it to the league. He played at Stanford just recently. Chasen Randall. Played at Stanford. I think he's like Stanford's all-time career points leader. younger cat. He probably just graduated from Stanford in 2018, 2017, but he actually just made an NBA roster out of Rock Island.
Oh, crazy. That's
Yeah,
dope,
they got
man.
ballers, man. Yeah, they had ballers for sure.
Yeah. What was your recruiting process like?
Stressful
Yeah.
because like once freshman year was over, I actually my mom was like, yeah, I don't care what's going on. Like I'm not really feeling that like you guys being away from me thing. So you and your brother are actually coming to me, and this was my sophomore year. I got to South Carolina. It was a different feel, man. It was one of those things where this is my take on it. Like I just think South Carolina was a football, specifically Columbia was a football city, but South Carolina was kind of a football state. People knew about Clemson, but
Mm.
people weren't necessarily like, let's go to the Clemson basketball game. It was football, like people were going to Greenville to go to the football game. So it was just a different environment. I didn't vibe with the coach there as quickly or as much as I wanted to, because I had
Mm.
that relationship with my coach freshman year. I was thinking the same thing would happen, and it just wasn't.
Yeah.
And during this whole process, my high school coach was reaching out to my mom and staying in contact with me, like, hey, we would love to have Justin back. Like, hey, here's what's going on. All these sophomores, all these guys that Justin played with, they're getting varsity minutes now. Because that freshman or that senior group, when Travis went to Arizona, when Ian went to UIC, I mean, people needed to step up, and so there was playing time to be had. And he was like, I think Justin would have a great opportunity right off the bat. He made it freshman year. I don't see why if he doesn't work hard, he couldn't be a starter. So I'm hearing this, like I'm in the background, like a little bad kid. What do you say? And so, yeah, so it ended up being one of those things where I actually went back, and it was at a point where I really needed it, because I wasn't getting the exposure that I needed to, because yeah, I was getting a couple of little D3 looks in South Carolina, and I'd actually gotten a letter from Clemson. That was pretty cool. They send out letters to everybody. I mean, if you got some game, they'll send you a letter. So it wasn't anything super special, but it was cool. I was kind of behind the eight ball. I was kind of, it was kind of lagging. So then I got back, and my junior year, we kind of snapped off. So the process started to pick up. I was getting letters from Illinois State. I was getting letters from Purdue. Summertime, we didn't have AAU, but we had a whole bunch of camps. There was something called Flashes. There was something called the Spotlight.
Mm-hmm.
All these different, if you're familiar. So we would go up there and we would get off, because it was your high school homies anyway. You had the chemistry, guys, depending on your team. I mean, our team, I was lucky to have great guys. Like they would pass the ball, like nobody was ball hungry. So it was great to have that type of exposure, playing with those type of guys. They were setting you up. So I was getting off. The one thing about me, when I went back, I basically was just living with my aunt, and she already had two younger babies. And I, for the most part, wasn't, not in trouble, but I wasn't on top of my schoolwork like I should have been. And so junior year, I was getting these letters, but basically the feedback was like, because they asked, what's his GPA, what's going on, what's his course load and all that. The feedback was, you got to get your grades up. And so I think going into my senior year, that kind of hampered the recruiting process a little bit. I mean, I was still getting the letters and, still having great conversations. And at one point I was in the position to sign with Indiana State. My senior year, I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit.
Uh-huh.
They took a guy out of Mount Zion. I think his name was Jake Sams or Michael Sams, one of the two. There was a like all-star squad that played in Mount Zion 2000, 2001. I think one guy went to Wisconsin, one guy went to Ball State, one guy went to Indiana State. Like they had a baller squad. But Indiana State ended up taking this guy because he had better grades. And so it was a great experience. Like I talked to a lot of cool coaches. I met Steve Alford. He was the coach at Iowa. Talked to him, shook his hand, and through a lot of conversations, got introduced to the world of the college world of basketball, which is totally different than high school, as you know.
Yeah. What was that conversation like with Steve Alford? Did you like talk with him about your game or anything, or was?
So it was an Iowa camp. I was out there getting buckets. Like I never I'm not gonna lie, I over relied on my athleticism, and I had a decent stroke, so that's just what I did. Like I wasn't out there like trying to shake and bake. But for some reason, this game, like I was cooking. Like I was out there cooking these dudes. And so he was talking to me just about the specifics of that game, and he said, where do you see yourself? Like, what do you? And I said, like I'm probably a small forward. At that point, I'd grown up to be 6'5", so from freshman year to senior year, I sprouted about 3 or 4 inches.
Uh-huh.
And he was like, where do you see yourself? I said, small forward. I mean, I was 6'5", 185. I was still skinny, so I'm like, small forward. Hey, you'd have to put on some weight to do that here in the Big Ten, man. And I was like, yeah, you're right. But he was super cool because, I mean, you think about the things that he did at Indiana. I mean, great coach, great player. So it was kind of cool to talk to him. But it was, really, really specific to that situation and that question about, like, where do I see myself? And From that point forward, like I talked to one of the assistant coaches kind of frequently, but
Yeah. At your age now, like looking back at if you were like trying to recruit, if you were a college basketball recruiter and you were looking at your game at 6'5", 185, like where would you see yourself playing with your skill set as an older man now?
Well, it's interesting because like Edwardsville, as you remember, like we made it to the Elite Eight and it was a great experience. We always played D1 dudes. I wouldn't change that experience for the world. And Edwardsville is now Division One. They're Ohio Valley. They're in the same conferences: Tennessee Martin, Tennessee State, and Austin P, and all that. So I think that there's something to say that like to the level that we played, I think we kind of helped that transition along.
Yeah.
But back then, I would say I was probably low D1. I wish I would have had the guidance to have somebody work on me with skill set. Like I didn't have somebody who was doing ball handling drills with me, and I didn't have somebody in the gym, pushing me to be the best I could be or helping me work on my game in a way that I probably should have been. Because once my parents got divorced, my dad kind of went and did his own thing, which is whatever, but I wish I would have been able to be a little bit more focused back then. Cause I think I definitely could have played high D1. I could have played Big Ten ball for sure. I had the package. I just didn't have the fine tuning that I needed at that point.
Yeah. I think that happens to a lot of players. Like you see that a lot from after like junior high school. Once kids go to high school, there's a big like separation, and high school becomes more like serious. I think it's more about winning, and coaches don't have time for like player development, right? But today there's a lot of like outside trainers that are teaching like young kids skills from an early age, just to I think kind of compete a little bit more with like international ball has been picking up skill wise. You got like cats like Luka Doncic, right? So I think that's why like American ball kind of maybe has been picking up a little bit more in like skill training.
100% agree. And thinking about like how the internet has progressed everything, even that, like to be able to have that at my fingertips, I think that it could have been different, where at least I would have been given the tools and given the decision to work on that myself. Like, yeah, I think a big part of like, the development of a player is actually having a coach and having somebody push them, but actually having access to that information, that knowledge, that even could have been a tipping point for me in some way or fashion. It's crazy the stuff's out there. I mean, you can literally build out custom basketball training plans based around your personality or your profile and then what you want to be. It's insane.
I was going to ask you a different question, but like going back like to the recruiting process, like so 6'5", 185 coming out of high school, and then how did you end up and make your decision to go to SIUE?
It really boiled down to economics, man. I'm not gonna lie. Like, had some local JUCO offers. I had a partial to Illinois State. They were going to pay for room and board, but I still had to pay tuition. And it was one of those things where they're like, based on the 1 year that you play, or like this, that, and the other, we'll decide, moving forward if we give you a full ride. Edwardsville just offered. They said that, and so I was like, well, one, where is Edwardsville? Like SIUE? Like I had never heard of a school with like 4 letters as their like abbreviation. And then I was like, where's this shit at? Like I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I don't know where I'm going. And so it was always interesting though, because like through this process, you also have to remember too, like my mom was away. Like my mom had been stationed in South Carolina for 3 years at that point. And so I didn't have her there. I didn't like, and she's kind of the person I bounce ideas off of. 31 years active military, like she did her thing. She's just a smart person. So it was kind of like a disadvantage for me where I was communicating what they were saying to me over the phone, and kind of, she was obviously looking over the paperwork. Mm-hmm. My first visit, I literally just hopped in my Ford Escort. I had a little green Ford. Remember that green Ford Escort I had, bro? I don't know if you remember that. I had 2 12s in that mug.
I don't remember that one. I remember you had an Infinity though, right?
Yeah, that was towards your junior senior year. So she gave me that. I'm not even in front. I was balling with my Infinity. My mom gave me that. But it was one of those things where I started out in this process by myself, just talking to these coaches by myself. And literally my first visit to Edwardsville, I just threw on a t-shirt and some shorts. Like I didn't know, like I didn't even bring my basketball shoes, I don't think, but just drove down to Edwardsville from Moline, St. Louis basically. So about a 4-hour drive. Got there, sat down at the Applebee's. That Applebee's on 157 or 159, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And met with Coach Holmes, who was the assistant coach there at the time. SIUE's all-time leading scorer. He's a hooper. And then Coach Morgenthaler, who actually recruited me and offered. And they were like, is this where you want to be? I'm like, I don't even know where I'm at. Is this where I want to be? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, bro. Like, are y'all paying? Because I'm in. Like, I'm trying to hoop. So, like, I didn't know anything about the conference, Great Lakes Valley Conference. I didn't know anything about Kentucky Wesleyan or, mm-hmm. Southern Indiana, all these great schools. Bruce Pearl coached at Southern Indiana. So I'm like, man, yeah, I mean, I guess. And that's literally how it went. And I feel so lucky in a lot of situations, man. Like, it was literally the best fit for me. Like, it ended up being like probably one of the like funnest 5 years of my life, because I redshirted my first year because I really wasn't ready academically or physically. But it was the best 5 years of my life. You know what I mean? Like, it just happened that way. And to see where it's at now, I mean, I'm pretty proud of our alma mater. You know, it's 14,000 people now. It's the second largest school, I think, in the St. Louis region. Tons of academic accolades and even sports. You know, they won they won a softball national championship, and the soccer team's always in the Final Four and all that. So it's kind of cool to see all that and know that you were a part of it in some capacity.
Yeah. SIUE, it's my dad and all my uncles, I have 3 uncles and an aunt, they all graduated from SIUE.
Wow.
So
No.
they went there back in like the 70s when it was a lot like less developed than when even me and you were there.
Yeah.
So, they've seen it come, and they were telling me how cheap the classes used to be back then. I forgot how much.
We'll let you into class.
Yeah. My grandpa, he was a professor there actually. And
that's so cool.
yeah, political science professor at SIUE back in like I think like the 60s maybe. But like he started the I want to say like Asian studies pretty much department at SIUE.
And the family's originally from Collinsville?
They immigrated from China to California, Berkeley. Then they moved to Collinsville, and they were the first Chinese family in the history of Collinsville.
Back in the 60s.
Yeah. My dad and one of my other uncles, they stayed in the Collinsville area. So that's where I was born and raised. But yeah, it's a trip though, man, SIUE. But anyways.
Well, I mean, it's like even Collinsville, right? Like high school basketball, I think that's one of the like top 5 winningest programs in Illinois history.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Anthony Jones, I don't know if you remember AJ, Centralia,
Mm-hmm.
one of the top winningest programs in the nation.
Yeah, no, I played 4 years at Collinsville High School. So I played for Coach Bone.
I don't know this. I mean, I know we'd always bump into each other in the gym. Like, you were always getting shots up.
Yeah, you know who I used to shoot my senior year. I used to in practice. My shooting partner was Burnell Coates.
Burnell, I've heard that name forever. How is he? Because he hooped there too, right? He was a hooper.
Yeah. SIUE, like, what was it like there your freshman year, or the year you said you redshirted your freshman year, right?
Redshirted my freshman year, yeah, and then we got Jack Morgenthaler actually retired. And then they brought on Marty Simmons. He played for Jim Cruz down in Evansville. No, originally played for Bobby Knight the first 2 years. His freshman and sophomore year, he was on the court that infamous game when Bobby threw the chair.
Okay.
Yeah. So we actually kind of bonded over that because he was kind of a knucklehead too. Like he was a hooper. I think he ended up being Evansville's all-time leading scorer. He played pro ball. He played with Calvin Chaney. I don't know if you remember that name.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Evansville guy. But long story short, yeah, so he did his first 2 years at Indiana, then he transferred to Evansville and played for Jim Cruz, who coached at Army too. So he came from a nice basketball pedigree, and he was a sharp dude, really sharp dude. It was a great experience, man. Like, to see where Edwardsville was, like, we were literally sharing the weight room with the same, the calisthenics classes and all that. You know what I mean? Like, we'd have to move in because the girls were. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it was kind of crazy, like using these secondhand weights and building and, getting better with barely nothing. I mean, I think there's high school programs. I mean, my high school actually had better facilities than Edwardsville did in 2001. So it was really about the experience. I mean, Woodland Hall, Prairie Hall, and,
Mm-hmm.
The overall college experience. Like basketball, like, as a hooper, man, like I'll go out and play flip-flops. Like, where are we hooping at? Like, I don't even care. Like, like the ball is flat, you're still out there getting buckets or trying to. So you didn't think much about it. But then that 2016, we made it to the Elite Eight, and the school hadn't been there up until that point. I mean, they still haven't been there, but, past that. But they actually brought us back in 2016, and they, showed us the facilities, and they've redone the entire court. And there's a brand new section with like Gatorade on tap, coming out of an electric machine. I'm like, what's happening? Like, where did y'all get this money? Like, because we needed this in 2001. But I think it honestly it was that transition of, going from D2 to D1 and, being a part of a major conference like the Ohio Valley and, having great leadership. I think Edwardsville had a great athletic director in Brad Hewitt. And all the coaches clicked, and they were all bright. Sandy Montgomery, who ended up winning a national championship D2 softball, she used to come in there and give us pointers like, like, you're not low enough, Ward. You know, like on the squad, you're not low. I mean, it was just wild. It was like a family environment. So you really didn't see the lack of infrastructure, or the fact that this court was janky. You know what I mean? You know, like, you just like kind of, because I'm serious, like, Brandon, it was, I mean, you remember, like, it wasn't even a wooden court. It was like, I don't even remember, like, cement. Like,
I've been
like,
there. Yeah.
yeah, you remember, like,
Yeah. So you went to the Elite Eight. That was your senior year, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember that because I was taking kinesiology courses. That's what I graduated with, and so I was always like in that area, and I would always see like the basketball players there, like doing their workouts and training and getting taped up or whatnot. But what was that year like? That was your senior year, unless you feel like there was any like bigger seasons that you had like your sophomore, junior year that you want to talk about, or do you want to skip to like the senior year?
I think my 5th year senior year was probably the most fun. It was the coolest group of dudes. I mean, we had a lot of local cats. JB Jones, Belleville East. That boy used to get buckets. I mean, he's Basketball Hall of Fame, SIUE Basketball Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
Jones,
I know him.
Me, Anthony Jones, and JB Jones, all 1, 2, 3 most games played in Edwardsville history. Like, I had mad chemistry with those dudes. Both of them were younger than me, I think, by a year. JB might have been 2 years.
Yeah. I remember playing those dudes in high school. I was sitting on the bench, but like my teammates, I remember going to those games against like, Belleville East and Centralia.
There's a lot of people across country in major metros that would come to a tournament in that area, Belleville East, Belleville West, Collinsville, and get worked. Like, you know what I mean? Like, kids from Chicago came down there and got work. You know what I mean? So, like, these dudes are dogs. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's gonna be like, oh, D Miles is country because he's from East St. Louis. Like, nah, these dudes get buckets. Like, they're out here for real. So it was pretty cool, man. Because we just had chemistry, and then we had Mike Hardick from Teutopolis, another local guy, and we had some transfers, and Ryan Belcher played at SEMO, and he comes from a pedigree, man. He came from I think it's Mexico, Missouri. Ty Lue, head coach, NBA champion. From Mexico.
I partied with Fuzzy and Logan Brand one night.
Wow.
I'll tell you the story real quick.
Yeah.
So I would always be in the kinesiology department, and I'd talk to like Logan Brand. He's a chill dude, and we were just like messing around in the gym one day, and he was like, I don't know how it came up, but he was like, I think because we all kicked it at that Club Buka. I'm sure you probably been there, right?
Yeah, Club Buka on the landing, bro.
Yeah.
Juking.
So I might have saw him there one night. And that's how. So one night we were talking. He's like, we weren't doing nothing. So he's like, why don't you come over? So I was like, all right. So he was roommates with Fuzzy, I believe. So I went to their apartment, and they were just like watching Entourage on TV. And I remember they had like a snake, I think. Do you remember this?
Yeah, I think somebody had a snake.
They had a snake, and they were like, watch this. And they had like a rat or something. Or a mouse, and they were like, here, let me feed this thing.
I think that was Fuzzy, actually. That was like a party trick. He used to pull it out when he was trying to impress everybody. Hey, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So that night, man, we were drinking, man, and we were drinking like Crown Royal and Coke, and we were just drinking. We got pretty messed up that night, and we were driving there, and crazy story, like we get there, and when we get there, I forgot if it was me or one of them. They wouldn't let me in, or one of them, because of our dress code. So we drove all the way back to Edwardsville area, and then we drove back, but we were drinking like the whole time, man. And by the time we got there, man, we were pretty faded, all three of us, and we had a good time, man. I don't remember what else happened that night, but yeah, it was an interesting night hanging out with those two guys.
Yeah, I mean, great dudes, man. Great personalities. I mean, that was one thing that like you realize, like, dang, that was pretty special, because being on so many different teams, like, not everybody vibes like that. And I mean, there were guys who didn't party at all, but we all were on the same page in practice and supportive. You know what I mean? Like, at that age too, it's kind of weird. Some dudes are kind of like, man, this about me, it's me. So it was just really cool to have that vibe. And I definitely think it kind of played itself out on the basketball court.
Yeah.
Record upon records being broke. Ty Johnson, Springfield cat, local dude. That dude used to get buckets.
Yeah, I remember him. Yep.
I mean, yeah, it was just a great group of dudes, and we had a great coach. I mean, he didn't play, man. He'd get in your face, but as a man, and even at that age, a young man, I still appreciated it. I respected it. I knew what he was trying to do, and everybody else did too. We actually had at that point the longest winning streak in the nation, right behind the Illini. that 05-06 year. Like that was that year that Illini had made the national championship. So we were literally right there with them. Like it was a special year, man. And we had played them the year before. I got worked out by Luther Head.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I was looking at some of your stats earlier today, and I did see that game, the Illinois game, but they didn't have the box score for that one. But what was that experience like? Could you feel like the difference playing D2 to playing against like a D1 team like that, or you felt like, man, if we had time to prepare and we like practice, we could get them in a 5-game series maybe, or a 7-game series?
Not that Illini team, bro. I mean, they had Luther Head at the 3. They had Darren at the 2. I think D Brown was running the 1, and then they rounded it out with Roger Powell, who was a monster. I mean, he was like my height, but he was at least 240, 250. I mean, in college, I mean, it was all muscle, so it wasn't fat. I mean, it was all muscle. And then at the 5 they had Augustine, who had game. I mean, they're some would argue in that 2005-2006 game, championship game, like the calls that didn't go our way were kind of suspect, and they were on Augustine against Sean May that year. But anyway, it was really one of those things where you saw the difference in level. And nothing, I mean, I think JB could have played D1, I think Ty could have played D1, but high D1, like you just like the way that, so like thinking about this, I think JB was actually guarding Darren. And you just saw him like, man, okay, he's got game, but you just saw the differences in speed and the change of pace. And like, I'm like, oh, okay. So
it's a different level.
Yeah, you're like, okay, because like, you don't always see that, cause especially too when you're younger, like the playing field, it's not that, I mean, everybody's not developed. I mean, these dudes were on their way to the NBA. I think D Brown ended up staying an additional year because I think he was 1 year behind those guys. But that year, Darren went round 1. Luther Head went round 1. I think Robert Hall went like low deep round 2. I mean, like 3 of the 5 starters went, in the NBA draft. And so as a kid, you're like, yeah, I want to play in the NBA. I can play in the NBA. Like you're thinking D2, like I think I can still do it. And then you see, because at the D2 level, like there is scouts in the stands sometimes. I mean, there's a couple of D1 guys that kind of go down D2 and of
course, yeah. There's some D2 guys that are doing well in the NBA.
Yeah, exactly. So I saw that and I was like, yeah, these dudes got us. I mean, I'm not going to say I was intimidated, but I just realized like I can't do what I used to. Like I can't do what I typically do on the D2 level. Like I'm sizing up, Luther. And, my typical move, I go this way, I come back. Like he's there. I'm like, oh, we can do. Or like when I try to get a dude on my hip, like I'm trying to do my thing. I'm like, oh, he's strong. Like, So it's just like, yeah, you learn pretty quick. Like, I don't think we could have got those dudes in 5 games. I think it would have been 0-5. Our center got dunked on. I forgot to box out. Luther Head took off. I forgot to box out. He dunked on our center, Hymos. Hymos was like, and I was just like, my bad, bro. It was on a free throw. I forgot to box out, dude. This dude just blew by me. I just took off on Dan. I was like, my bad, bro. Yeah, it was fun, though. It was a great time.
Yeah. Do you think for those guys like D Brown, Luther Head, Darren Williams, do you think that a lot of the stuff that they, I guess I should say, like at their level that you saw, like, do you think that's a lot of that is genetics, or you think they just worked harder?
I think that it's a mix. I think that a lot of the guys who are that skilled, I mean, obviously they're working super hard. I mean, super duper hard. But you look at some of these dudes, and it's just like, I think you just are blessed genetically, not in the sense of athleticism. Look, a perfect example, Steph Curry. Like there are things that man does that, yeah, he works on a lot, but the same, like 99% of the population, 99% of the basketball population could try and work on those same things, and they'll never get to where he's at or be as good as he is. You see that in dudes like Damian Lillard. Like some of those shots he hits and the way he sets himself up, you can tell he's worked on that. But I could work on that in my prime and not still get the same results, So I do think it's there's something to it. Just it's just a mix of all those different things, like obviously, you have to work hard in order to be good. I mean, we can't all be AI, talking about practice.
AI was a freak athlete too, though, man. Like
people sleep on that.
I read his book, or not his book, but like a book that somebody wrote about him. And he was saying that like at practice back in the day when he was on the Sixers, like this dude would not barely train at all, and he would just show up at practice and like beat all these dudes and like sprinting and like long distance running and everything, man. He just eat tacos and not lift weights.
It's actually pretty crazy when you think about it. But I'm excited to see just the young guys try. Like I'm like, you know, like I don't have any kids yet, but like even like living vicariously through some of my buddies' kids, you know, I got a buddy who's got a daughter, a guy from Moline I went to high school with. He's a little bit younger than me, but I think she's ranked like top in the nation for sure in the state for her age. And just seeing, you know, just seeing them work, like it's just there's so many different levels of basketball. There's so many different ways to capitalize off basketball, man. It's a business, but it's also kind of like, you know, an opportunity to get a scholarship, and it's an opportunity to be healthy, but it's just cool to see the journey of everybody, man. Like,
Do you like the game today better?
there's aspects of today's game that I like a lot. Like, I love watching, like back in the day, a couple years back, Golden State moved the ball like that. Like, I love a freaking fluid motion offense and just like getting the best shot that you can get by ball movement. So I see aspects of that play out now. And I say that, like back in the day, like that's all we ran. We just ran motion. We had a couple of sets, but we literally just would read that. We would read what the defense was giving us, and the offense would be dictated from that. And everybody was on the same page. Like we had our calls out, and just to have that, like everything just makes more sense. Like as opposed to you standing around and waiting for this dude to do something, you know what I mean? Waiting to see what he does because you're trying to figure out like where you should rebound. Like, is he going to take a step back and step to the right? You know what I mean? Like, what does this do? So like today's NBA, like and more so like even college, like not a big fan of the ISO stuff. Like I get it. It's entertaining, and you know, who doesn't love James Harden's game? I mean, you see that he's like that. Like that's one of those things we were going back to the point about like work versus like kind of like skill set and like what you're naturally born with. He works on that. Like, yeah, you know, like he's a very skilled dude naturally, but he works. So like I appreciate that. Like I love that aspect of it. But I kind of miss the old days where it was more about the team aspect. You see a little bit of the Lakers. Like LeBron knows. Like he saw how the Golden State Warriors won. I mean, they move that ball pretty well. They've got their sets, but I mean, it's kind of that team dynamic that I always was drawn to, and I even pick up on it now. Like I like watching it a lot. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Luka, freaking awesome to watch that game against him in Golden State, Dallas versus Golden State a couple days ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna act like that's not fun to watch. Those two go off, but definitely am like kind of like a traditionalist when it comes to kind of like the team aspect and all that.
Got you. Your senior year, you guys went to the Elite Eight. D2, is it very similar to D1, or is it the setup a little bit different?
The setup is pretty much the same exact thing. The difference is the lack of fans. You know what I mean? It was the same type of setup. We were introduced to the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. The D2 championship was in Springfield, Massachusetts. We met Dickie V. It was that year that Vermont was super hot. The head coach from Vermont stopped by and said some words, and it was a formal occasion. So we sat. I mean, the Basketball Hall of Fame is literally this humongous globe, and they've got portrait of all the guys and girls who are part of that. And so you're sitting in this dome, and it's illuminated. So the pictures are actually illuminated. It's like this illuminated dome. And you're sitting there in just awe. You know what I mean? Like it was just like they didn't treat it any differently. The NCAA, that's one thing, mad respect. I mean, there's issue. People have a lot of issue with kind of how everything is, and we could definitely go down another, I think, entire podcast about how people take advantage of some of the athletes, not just basketball.
Yeah.
But hats off to them because they made it special. And I have memorabilia around here. I got cool basketball that was signed, and they gave us a clock, NCAA Division II championship clock, and obviously I kept all the other memorabilia. They had pamphlets and promotional brochures and all that. So they did it. I mean, they made it special for us. I mean, even though it was D2, it was definitely a great experience. And the championship game actually has a decent amount of fans for D2 because it's televised. I mean, the Division II national championship game is actually televised. So we were close. We actually, Ty Johnson had a shot to win it. We ended up losing to Ben Wallace's old team, Virginia Union.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they actually there was a loose ball. One of their guys picked it up at the free throw line, put it up, hit it. They went up by one. Ty came down, and he tried to go one-on-one as opposed to going for a layup. He decided to take a shot, and it just bounced off. So we were one step away from going to the Final Four too. Yeah, it was a special time though. It was a special time with a special group of guys, and I wouldn't have traded it for anything. Thinking about it too. Like obviously it's not as prestigious as the Division I championship. I'm not going to say it is, but how many guys get to experience something like that at all? Nothing against like a Kent State, but you know what I mean? Like, what are your chances of getting to that? You know what I mean? Like, unless you're at one of the power schools, Kansas, Duke, like your chances of getting to a national championship, a Final Four even is really slim to none. So, yeah, very happy about our effort that year. We beat a lot of our arch nemesis, University of Quincy or Quincy University. They kicked our butt a couple times that year, but I think that third game we actually won when it counted. So it was just that entire journey. was something that I wouldn't take back. And yeah, the culmination was that cool experience at the Basketball Hall of Fame.
That's what's up, man. Do you think college athletes should be paid?
100%. You should be paid for your likeness. You know, I don't necessarily know what that means, and obviously there's a lot of smarter people who are looking at this, but it's been shown that guys, you know, like the Fab Five, prime example, like millions, if not billions, are made off of those guys over the course of their lifetime, just from their college days. Industries were shaped by those dudes, you know, the way that clothes were tailored, you know, stuff like that. Like those type of cultural influences as teams, as players, should be recognized monetarily, because everything else we do, it is, you know what I mean? Like you're paid for a product at work. I mean, it's basic as W-2 income, you know what I mean? But like you're paid for everything else that you output in some capacity in America, capitalism. I don't understand why we don't pay them.
Yeah. I agree. That is pretty interesting. And remember like those video games, like those NCAA games, when they would have the player look like the player, but it wouldn't have like their name on the back of their jersey?
Well, that's crap. That's BS, man.
Yeah.
Pay those dudes. Yeah. It's like, yeah, like, okay, you signed a contract for this, and that's fine. Like your collegiate academic contract or whatever it is, your scholarship. That's separate from what this university or the NCAA is doing and making over here. It's two separate things. You're 18 years old, or if you're not, your parent signs off on it. There should be some type of way to pay for your likeness.
Yeah, I wonder if they like tracked like all the money, like who. I mean, it's going somewhere, obviously, right? But how they split it up, like, yeah, I think there would be enough money. I would say there would be some way. Whether if it was not direct payments to the players in cash, it would be like some form of compensation, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, through maybe, I don't know, stock options, but some type of option. You can reinvest in this or that.
Or even like maybe money for like, say like a grant or something, like, or say what about this idea? Like, say if this college athlete graduates, per se, it could be like an incentive form, like they'll get this much of an amount for their kids' future.
Yeah,
even something like that.
Yeah, I would be like, okay, you know, like, oh, like, you know, like maybe you make it so like you don't have to necessarily go to that school, but you get access to any school in the conference.
Yeah,
I'd be like, heck yeah, like I'll take that.
Yeah, or just like a lump sum that they could use for their college education in the future.
Exactly.
You know, wherever they want to go to, you know.
Heck yeah.
So there's ways to compensate, I think, players, and I think just like a lot of stuff that we see with like in the news and politics, there's ways to make everybody happy or satisfied, but there's a reason why it doesn't happen.
Politics, man, there's always a reason.
Well, yeah.
There's not enough money to share. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
$1 industry. I'm pretty sure NCAA generates billions in revenue. Yeah, absolutely they do with the TV. 100% billions in revenue. There's not enough for everybody. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's going somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere. Somebody's pocket.
I was gonna say, like, weed has just became legal, I guess, per se, in the NBA.
Yeah.
I think last year or the year before, right?
Yeah.
Either this season or last season, where they stopped testing for weed, which is good.
Hopefully the whole stigma around it. I mean, even the criminalization and the disproportionate amount of people who are in jail based on those charges. I hope all that just goes away. I mean, I think it's the next big industry. I don't know if you're into stocks. I got a couple of weed stocks. It's one of those things where it only makes sense, right? Like, why are we wasting money on the drug against the war against drugs, specifically marijuana, when we can be taxing it and making money off it? And I like some of the things that people talk about with that. I think you probably were following that too. But like, they talked about reinvesting some of that tax dollars into the community. That's actually a big point of conversation in the Chi. Because South and West Side, man. I mean, they need that. They need that money for education.
Some of the places, man, like in like these like poor, like, I guess we would call them ghetto places, man. Like the hoods, like, it's pretty bad, man. Like, it's like, how do people live like this? You know what I'm saying? And there's money. Not to get too high and philosophical, but there's money out there, right? And like you said, it could come through those tax dollars through weed, right?
So much money, bro. Everybody acts like it's so hard to help people out. Like raising the minimum wage to $15 per hour. Like, what are we talking about right now, bro? Like, we've got like a $29 billion, whatever it is, some stupid $1 billion amount budget for military spending. We're not even our closest ally or our closest enemy comes close to spending that shit. Like you're trying to tell me we can't take 700 million from that, just like 700, maybe 800 million from that, and reinvest it into these areas. That's one thing that weirds me out, man. Like, why are you so mad because people just want a fair shake? You know, like they're like, go back to your country, or you need to know your place, and you should be happy with what you have. And it's like, this is America, bro. This ain't fucking Sudan. Like everybody's eating. We see it. We see that y'all got the advantages. Y'all got the generational wealth. Like we see this shit, man. Like we're just trying to have that too. Like, why are you so salty on that? There's enough for everybody. Like nobody wants to move to your hood. Like if we could, we would reinvest on the south side. We would reinvest in the west side. Like nobody wants to go to Evanston, bro. Like nobody wants to hang out with y'all. listen to some shit that we don't want to listen to. Eating food. You know what I mean? Like obviously I love our school for that. Like we had kids from Farmington, the farms, and we had guys from the middle, kind of Collinsville, and like some of these areas that straddle that border of the city. And then we had dudes and girls from the city, you know, St. Louis. I mean, St. Louis is a top 20 city. It's a true city. And we all came together. Like we would all kick it, you know, like the quad was always jumping. Everybody kind of was doing their things. Like, I don't remember. I mean, obviously, you know, we were young, fisticuffs, people fighting here and there. I think actually we were at a party and you got in a fight, actually. I think I remember this. I think it was a pool party. I think this dude was trying to get serious, bro. You had to toss this dude up, bro. Actually, it was you, Brandon. Where were we? We were somewhere, and dude was trying to act like he was tough, and you had to toss him up by the pool.
I was fighting with somebody there, but I feel like I know what party you're talking about, but I feel like there was like a bigger fight that happened later on that night. You know?
Yeah, it was a big deal at this house. It was, I can't remember, maybe Collinsville. It was like, it wasn't Edwardsville. We were
yeah,
like,
I know where it's at, and I know whose crib it was, but just to protect the innocent, I won't say his name. But yeah, I know I was there that night, but yeah, it was a pretty fun night, man. It got pretty cracking over there.
It was a good time, man. It was a good time. Like, yeah, that was one of the cool things about where we were raised. You know, like it was a melting pot. I think that there's a space for everybody, and if we need to, we can retreat into our own little fucking world. You know what I mean? I'm vibing wherever the fuck I'm going, and that's what people don't understand. Like everybody's not like, you know, out to get you. You know?
Yeah.
So weird to me.
There's some people that really believe that weed is bad, though, man. Today, though, it's pretty crazy.
It's the same way with alcohol. People are gonna. I mean, popular opinion's so weird. Some people call it the devil's grass. I don't even know what that means. Like, I just want to go to sleep. Like, I just want to enjoy this movie. Like, I don't know about any of that. Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that people just are gonna be pissed about anything and everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like people are gonna be mad that we're having a good time just talking about basketball. You know what I mean? Like, look at them. They think they can just talk about weed.
Yeah. No, I was thinking like, cause I was just talking to an old friend of mine, and he moved back recently to Illinois, and he was complaining to me about like the governor of Illinois, and I was like, but you know what? When I think about it, there's probably somebody in every state that doesn't like their governor, right?
Mm-hmm. Dude,
so
people petition at the grocery store for Newsom. They're like, recall Newsom, and they're actually like active, like asking you to come over and sign things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's California's governor.
I you know, and this sounds weird, or not really weird, but I would say for me, like at my age, I'm 36 now, so like I think about like with politics, like I haven't found like a reason or a strong enough feeling for either side, like the right or the left.
It's very easy to be disengaged. It's easy to be disengaged, but it's also like one of those things where like I get so mad when I see, like, it's almost politics and culture are almost interchangeable in America, you know, like, and maybe even throw in like a third category of capitalism, like those things, like it's almost impossible not to bring money into the situation or talk about police brutality, because it's always on our cameras, it's always on our forefront. So then that leads itself back to politics, you know. Mm-hmm. But yeah, with that being said, like I kind of get worked up about the people stuff, you know, like it just sucks that, like, you know, because you think about like making your own way. Like I would say that you made your way out here, you're successful, man, you're doing your thing. I decided to come out here on a whims, but like everybody doesn't have the kind of know how to do that. You know what I mean? Like not everybody can just get up and make their way, man. Like some people need help, some people need support and a little bit of focus. And to know that we can do that, you know what I mean? To know that if you would have known a little bit more about this person, you might have, thought a second before, choking them out for selling loose cigarettes. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if you would have, you know what I mean? Like if this person would have known how to react to cops and had been taught that or something, like people were more open about these different things and put money into these different things. Could that outcome have been different? You know what I mean? Like it's hard to swallow that.
Yeah.
So I know what you're saying. Like it's like, all right, cool. Two political parties, both of them have shysters.
Yeah, I feel like with politics though, there's so many different subcategories of politics. So like when we say the word politics, it's kind of like saying the word hip hop, because there's so many like other elements of hip hop. So just like with politics, I feel the same way. There's so many like elements of politics, and there's the politics I feel like that matter, that really move things, and then there's a lot of like emotional politics. It's like more like politics that make you feel something, like an emotion. But then there's the boring politics, like the law politics, you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
So that's what I feel like a lot of the media like is just like, it's like a show, right?
Oh, big time, bro. What about sensationalism? They got to sell that shit.
Yeah.
Money. They're about their money, man. Like, don't get it twisted. It used to not be that way, at least from what I remember, back in the 40s, 50s. When TV just started, like, it was definitely not about that. It was about, because, I mean, you didn't have access to multiple forms of information. You just had that 7, whatever it was, o'clock news with, what's his name?
Mm-hmm.
And I get my news from multiple sources, iPhone, social media, actually just doing my own searches through the Google machine.
I don't know. Politics is a weird thing to talk about too, I think.
Yeah, because it's like I don't know, man. Like when you travel, everybody in these different countries aren't like waving their flag, Like it isn't like give me liberty or give me death. Like I mean, you know what I mean? Like yeah, when you go to a sporting event, if it's an international sporting event, you're gonna see civic pride. You're like, but when you're traveling, bro, you don't see that. Like we're kind of interesting in that way. So like like you said, it's almost impossible to get away from.
Yeah, let's talk about life after college for you, man. Where did life take you, man?
I've always loved I wouldn't say disruptive technology, but technology that is something that is giving people a different look at the world, or not necessarily the world, a different look at a segment of something or some aspect of life. So you think about real estate. Right out of college, well, not right after college, after a couple of years of partying in St. Louis, drinking a ton of beer in Soulard,
yeah,
chasing a lot of women. Dude, St. Louis was a cool city for girls. I need to be quiet a little bit. Getting reckless, I do. No, it was a cool city.
What you sipping on, man? You drinking too, ain't you?
No, well, I was earlier a little bit.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh no, let me get myself together for Brandon. So I had to cool it out for an hour before.
Oh man.
Yeah. It was it's one of those things where I did love business. I thought about going my own route, and luckily I've been in a position to kind of follow up on that a little bit later in life. Heading to you're 36, I'm 38. Heading to the 40s. But I was just basically like in startups. So like my entire life I've been a part of the startup community, just focusing on just connections. I mean, that's basically what I do: business development, talking to people, talking about technology, talking about ways that they can make more money. Going back to that money conversation, it's always at the forefront. It's all at least for me. It's always coming up. Like, how do I help people feed their families? You know what I mean? So ultimately I can feed mine. You know what I mean? Like I just moved to California, been blessed, been able to buy a house. Not many people can say they've done that. And it's one of those things where it was a long-term goal, just not for the location or for like, oh man, I'm a Cali resident. It was more so about this being a nest egg. And so being a part of with the tech community, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for that type of growth. And so, yeah, that's what I'm doing, man, out here too. Making connections, networking, just trying to fucking keep it moving, bro. Getting hoops up, getting shots up. I get bored. I can't sleep as late as I used to. So literally I'll just go to the basketball court up the hill here, Angels Gate Park. Nobody come to my spot, even though I just shared it with you. Brandon, you're invited. You gotta come up here. The views, it is so fucking dope, man. It's such a cool place. Excuse my language, I don't know if I can cuss.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. It's all good. You could be real. I like it.
But no, it's a cool place, man. This is a very special part of the world, and I say world because yeah, you know, like America, like you see America, but like just the access to culture, the access to great food, everything that comes with culture, food, music, the scenery, you know, the views, the water, everything here is constantly evolving and constantly being, for better or worse, more expensive.
Yeah.
So, you know, yeah, like I definitely think it has its pros and cons. With that being said, you know, like there's this weird like dynamic, like it's like
Yeah. You know who else? You know who else from SIUE is out here? Our girl, Laura Witherspoon.
me and Laura kicked it.
Yeah.
Laura actually put me on, bro. So, she's like, "What are you doing?" Brian was in town. She's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, the homie's in town. Actually, I don't know if you remember this cat. He went to Edwardsville too, because Laura went to Edwardsville." And I'm sorry, you knew that. She actually went to She was from Moline though. Yeah, so Laura's from dog. So she went to actually a different school, but her brother and I graduated. Like I've known Laura basically my whole life. He is class of 2001. So I knew she was out here, but she was like, "Yeah, what are you doing that weekend?" I was like, "I don't know." She's like, "You want to go hit up Drew League?" I was like, "What?" She was like, "Yeah, I got the lock on the Drew League." I was like, "You can't even get tickets for that. Like how?" And she's like, "Don't worry about it." So anyway, yeah, Brian came through. We had to get up super duper early. We just went up to the Drew League and we just watched like a half a day's worth of basketball. Nobody big was there. I recognized a couple of cats. I mean, it wasn't anything crazy. I think it was like a random Sunday, but it was kind of cool. Yeah, it was, you know, the league games, and then we you know, we've kept in contact because I moved south because I think she's in Venice. But we've talked about linking up and hanging out.
Yeah. Like me and her as well, man. Talk about balling, man. I got to get some shots up, but like, my manager, she's kind of like she's strict about like that COVID because she works in like the health industry. So she's more paranoid about that kind of stuff. So she doesn't like me like going out and like hanging out with people. And so I don't really go out that often, man.
Yeah.
So like I just stay at the crib and just focus on work and stuff. But like, yeah, man, once the thing gets over with, man, we all got to, meet up and get some shots up, man. It'll be fun.
Yeah, it will be. Yeah, we talked about it a lot. This place actually has a couple of cougars. Couple SIUE Cougars, and that's just from the era that I remember and the era you remember. So I can only imagine how many other people are actually out here.
Yeah. So now you're just out here networking, and what else are you planning on doing like in the future?
So yeah, real estate holds, investments. Obviously, I mean that's almost a no-brainer. The population of the world just continues to rise, and demographic shifts have actually really opened up lanes. You know, not just Texas, not just Florida, all the Rust Belt city.
Yeah.
Go a little bit further west, Arizona, even New Mexico, Santa Fe, Albuquerque. Like shit's growing. It's just a matter of having boots on the ground that you can trust, and making sure you know your market. Like you don't want to price yourself out of a market. You don't want to have a shit ton of money put into a place, made it too nice, and you can't jack up the rents to reflect a return on that. That place you put money into. It's competitive.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of obstacles and all that, but I think it's only the natural progression. I've learned too much. I've talked to too many people. It's just a matter of figuring out how do you make it work in California. I mean, if not California, some of those emerging markets, and it's about building a team and building rapport with people on the ground. Unless you have those connections, so like there's just a lot of and it definitely helps to have W-2 income, but it doesn't matter. None of that shit really matters. It's about just who you know and how you ebb and flow.
Yeah.
So that's next.
Right on. The grind.
Pretty much, man.
The grind don't stop in whatever you choose to do, right?
It don't. I want to learn to snowboard. Maybe do that. Go up to Big Bear. That'd be kind of dope. Bust my ass.
Yeah. What kind of tunes have you been listening to these days, man?
Oh man, a lot of chill stuff. Man, just a lot of. I mean, I've obviously got my go-tos, kind of like the most recent, hip hop that's out there. I listen to hip hop, listen to jazz. I listen to a little electronic. I bumped that little Yachty album recently. I was messing with that. I was messing with that double disc Ray Shrumnum album Forever.
Oh yeah. What are your thoughts on the hip hop game today?
See, now this is where Grandpa Ward comes in. So like, I'm not gonna say that like lean with it, rock with it, like was like classical masterpieces, like you know what I mean. Like I'm not gonna act like the clothes that we weren't wearing were suspect. like how I mean, like we made it, you know what I mean? Like we made it through that era. That music was kind of cool. Like it like had its flair, and it was different. You know, the Saint Lunatics, like that was, I mean, what Nelly and those dudes did. I mean, you think about actually that run that St. Louis had with Nelly, Chingy, Jaquan, and there was another chick too.
I know who you're talking about.
Would you let me put it in your face or something like that?
There was Jibs too.
Yep. And then the last homie who actually died last year, Pop, Lock, and Drop,
Huey. Yeah.
Killed him.
Yeah, man. R.I.P. Huey.
Yeah, R.I.P. Man, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna rag on it. Here's what I gotta say. It was cool what he did this year, but for I think it was Complex to give not the baby. I don't even know this dude's name.
I'm not sure who you're talking about.
The baby's from Charlotte, and he's okay.
Lil Baby.
Little Baby.
There's so many babies, right? I'm not sure.
They gave this dude Artist of the Year. I'm like, wow, this dude, like no bars. I mean, you know, like half of the things that they say, they mumble it together just to make it rhyme. And I understand like that's kind of just what people are looking for. They're looking for that future, you know, future in some aspect. Cocaine raps with a little bit of slur here and there. The only thing I can say like that motivates me about the music is really the sounds. Like to continue to hear what these guys are doing with the production. Like that shit fucking is intriguing to me. I wish my brain actually worked like that, bro. Like if anything, I wish I had that musical brain, just making dope ass beats. Like that would be so sick. That's actually why I love hip hop. Like I'll never not stop listening just because of the acoustics, man, how they put shit together. Yeah, I love all of it. You know, the more melodic shit. Like I'm looking at Pac right now, like some of the shit that he would have on his album, like the music behind If I Die Tonight. Like, you know, like shit like that. Like that was just like, I mean, that was almost like composition. Like now it's a lot of electronics and putting like sounds and shit together, but it's still as complicated and still as cool to see and hear. There's actually something called Master's Class. Timberland did like this Master's Class on beat making, and I didn't like sign up for it. I'm not gonna, you know what I mean? Like I was on YouTube like pirating it, and just to see him lay like how they layer in beats, and you realize like it's kind of complex. Like there's sequences and there's numbers and there's things they're remembering. It's almost like math, bro. Like they broke that. I was just like, damn, Timberland's breaking this shit down. Like this is sick. So yeah, I'm just kind of looking at my playlist. My playlists are so eclectic. Was recently listening to some Don Toliver. That was pretty cool. Mac Miller. I've been listening to a lot of Mac the past 2 years.
Yeah, R.I.P. Mac Miller, man.
Man, that dude. That Swimming album was legit as shit.
Yeah.
Gary Clark Jr. I actually set up a Gary Clark Jr. playlist just recently. I've been jamming out to him. I got this channel called Chill Beats. This is pretty legit. So I'll play that. Mostly electronic stuff, or you know what I mean, in some capacity. Jazz, soulful, that type of music. A lot of production with just, you know, like no vocals, soulful music. Yeah, I love music. It's literally like one of those things where you could literally change your mood just by listening to it. The experience you have with a car ride and smoking, you know, as a passenger, the type of music, it's such a big part of that. You know what I'm saying? Like people are like, man, you shouldn't go to the beach and listen to music, or you shouldn't be in the forest and listen to music. Like it adds to the fucking like soundtrack of that. Like it's just like this picture that's being painted with it. Yeah, really the only thing that I think I probably haven't listened to in the past year, just in passing or just like from choice, is heavy metal.
Yeah, that's one thing that I don't really like check for. I don't think I've ever was like, well, I don't know, like is AC/DC heavy metal or is it different?
I think it's different.
It's a little bit different.
Yeah, I think heavy metal is that like no, like the AC/DC actually, like they were like you know, like Back in Black, like you know what I mean, like they're actually talking and shit. Like it's like some of this stuff, actually, some of my early high school weightlifting memories were to AC/DC.
Oh, yeah. What were you bumping, like, like in high school, I guess, to get, like, kind of like your mind ready for games?
All No Limit, bro. All No Limit. Like, I actually just kind of got goosebumps thinking about it. Like, we literally, like, it was literally all No Limit. Like, everybody was buying those janky albums. Like, they had the same cover, basically kind of reconfigured, and, like, some of them were blue, and, like, everybody was bumping No Limit, man.
Yeah, they had a good run.
I'm just thinking, like, No Limit Soldier, we No Limit. Dog, we used to get so cool. And, like, you remember the sound systems back then, they were so whack. So, like, but everybody was just, like, and, like, it was, like, one of those things, like, no matter where you went, like, people were just, like, either at the basketball court or in, like, a party. Like, it was, like, a lot of No Limit.
What did you think when Cash Money came out? Were you kind of like, man, these guys are kind of like taking No Limit style, or you thought they were cool, or they were different?
Honestly, I just thought it was cool back then. Like, now I dissect it and I'm like, oh, okay, like there's a little rivalry. Like, I didn't even realize like there was like competition and people were trying to like steal people from one group to another. But back then, I think it was probably like around senior year, Hot dropped. You got that big body Benz on.
Yeah.
Because you're playing your friends on. Like, that we were like, whoa. And then they dropped Drop It Like It's Hot. I think not Drop It Like It's Hot. I'm thinking Snoop. What's that? So they came out with the Hot Boys album, and it had the anthem. It was like the first introduction to Lil Wayne. Oh, I forget that song.
The Block is Hot, right?
Well, no, that was from his album, but the Cash Money compilation album. That's gonna drive me insane. I don't know if it's good now. It's because I smoke. I gotta Google this. We're gonna laugh because it's like an anthem. So it was definitely a lot of that. Like it was a lot of the South. When we were trying to be cool, we were listening to 8 Ball and MJG, Sitting on Top of the World. That was a classic album. We listened to a lot of Chicago, Twister, Do or Die. There was a cat out of there called Magic. And then, thinking about some of the other stuff that was just like a lot of regional stuff. Like, because my dad was from San Diego, like actually 8th, 9th grade, I was listening to E40 pretty heavily. It was when the Slurricane album came out. That group album. So like my dad was listening to a lot of that. So I just in passing would get kind of exposed to that. But I kind of carried that with me to Moline. Obviously Tupac, the 2-disc All Eyes, when that dropped, that was like my freshman, sophomore year. I mean, that was on freaking rotation nonstop.
Yeah.
Man, that was the soundtrack to life. Yeah, we weren't really listening to I wasn't very diversified in my music back then. Like it was all hip hop. Yeah, it was all hip hop.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where like the energy, I mean, well, hip hop's always got that kind of unique energy, but I mean, that was when like Master P made it cool for mofos to make money. Like, I mean, I don't think a lot of rappers were actually like multi-millionaires based off, private ownership. I think Jay Prince maybe did it down at Rap a Lot. P took it to another level. I think that one year, I mean, I'm not exactly remember the year, but they dropped like 10 to 15 albums. Like, bro, they were banking.
Yeah.
P was a Charlotte freaking Hornet. I think P made it to the NBA. What is happening? Like Master P could do anything. Well, they had this cool energy, man. Like they was just like it was a cool time to be a hip hop fan.
Yeah.
That was the most of it. I'm actually trying to think like what if anybody was listening to anything else other than that. I mean, you had I think the Notorious Big album dropped around then, so people were still getting down with that a little bit.
Did you get into Bone Thugs at all or 3-6 Mafia?
Oh yeah, yep. Bone Thugs Harmony. I was actually listening to them up until that Something War album.
Oh, The Art of War.
The Art of War, yeah. They had a song on there, something with ecstasy. I was like, yeah, like, because like that first Bone album, East 99, that was, I mean, damn, I almost have to put that. I have to put that in the top 10. That first Bone album, once they signed with Easy, where the Love of Money was on there.
Yeah.
Ever since I've actually listened to it.
Where would you rank Eminem?
M's got to be at least top 5. I mean, he has to be for some of the, and it's not the commercial work he's put out like that. Some of the albums and some of the work that the B-side or whatever you want to call it, like some of that shit is just, man, it's just classic hip hop. And I mean, Lose Yourself is probably one of my top 5 favorite songs.
Yeah, actually. That's a motivational track. Yep.
Well, Lose It was. I mean, I think that was college for us.
Something around that. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, the girls probably hated it when it came on because all the guys were just like. You know what I mean? All the guys were super hyped. Like, girls hate songs like that because the guys that's like a total guy song, Like, I don't know. I just imagine myself with the bros, like getting hyped up. Yeah, Eminem's definitely top 5. He's got to be. I mean, man, one person who actually I never thought would go out of the top 5 that did for me, Kanye.
Yeah. Dude,
College Dropout. Oh man, some of the stuff that Kanye originally laid down, like, I was like, he almost was like top 3 for me. Like those albums just resonated with me, and like recently, like I have to say, like I it's almost a shame as somebody who's from a Midwest guy and claims Chicago as home for a long time. Like I'm just like, I can't really claim Kanye. Dude,
sometimes I wonder though, like how much of the stuff that he does or says is for publicity versus like reality, and we would probably never know, right, unless we like. Actually like hung around with him and like got to know him, right?
100%. That's a great question to pose. I think he's doing it for publicity. I think Kanye's obsessed with that. I think he's obsessed with being in the public eye in some capacity.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to listen to like the Joe Rogan Kanye West podcast, but I kind of want to go back and check it out and see, like, because in a podcast I feel like it's more of that person's like maybe true thoughts or true feelings because it's in the moment. And so it's like harder to fake it, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I kind of want to see what like Kanye was really talking about. But I tried listening to it, and I don't know. Are you familiar with this podcast?
I haven't heard it either, but yeah, I knew that he had got on there. He had a pretty lengthy one. It was like an hour plus, right? Conversation.
Yeah, but I tried to listen to it, and it was like Kanye. He just like when he talks, like he goes in so many different directions.
Mm-hmm.
It was like hard for me to like kind of like focus on his point. What point was he trying to make? He would just.
I would be lost too, then, bro. Yeah, because I already know he's. There's been a couple of times like I'm just like, wait, what? Like I've had to rewind him like on interviews, and so like an hour plus long conversation, I'm gonna be like, yeah, all right, let me cut this off. Are you gonna try to give it a second chance? You think it's worth a listen?
I might. But then when I just remembered why I didn't like listen to it harder was because of that reason, that it just went so many different directions. I was like, what am I listening to?
Yeah. Listen, I don't know. I might pass. I might have to pass. Joe Rogan has some pretty thought-provoking conversations on there. That's a good podcast too.
I listened to that podcast a lot when I was like driving Uber and Lyft through the streets of LA.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would put that on, man, because it's so long and you can like listen to like the whole conversation and still have time to be driving and stuff. So it's like, but some of the shit like that he would talk about with like the people he talked with, it's kind of like inspiring. When these people like tell their life stories, it's like in an hour to 2 hour conversation, of course they're just giving it like a brief idea, right? But then when you think about the time that it took for them to actually get to where they're at, you're like, damn, some of these people, they really like went to great lengths to get to what they wanted to become in life. So just listening to that driving every day is just like inspiring.
Yeah. What's that lyric? Something you weren't shooting with me in the gym.
Yeah,
you know? I mean, like people don't see the work that you put in, and when you talk about it, when you listen to it, yeah, it is inspiring, man. I agree. I think that and in some way too, everybody's got something to share. Everybody's experience is so unique. Like that, I mean my minor was sociology, so like it was one of those things where like the study of people, anthropology, it's just one of those things, man, that it just definitely intrigues me. I think it's helped me a lot just in, we talked about like, moving to a new place, having to be that person that either stood in the corner and didn't make any friends and didn't, build a network, or, actually be that person that reaches his hand out. It determines a lot. It breaks down to a thing where, yeah, like I'm excited to have those conversations and hear those things, because you can almost pull something from everybody, man. If you really truly care and you want to listen, you can pull something from everybody. Like randomly, like I had a sprinkler guy come over and he was like, oh yeah, this and this about a plant, just in passing. And I was like, what? And I have one of those? Well, that's kind of cool. You know what I mean? So now I'm like trying to figure out like, what's this? How do I, so like, yeah, just like random things like all the time. It's kind of like what keeps me going. I mean, even thinking about like things like like work and how that all kind of plays out. Like I work and try to put myself in a position where I can just buy my own time. Have my time to do what I want to do, become a better person, learn new things, go new places, talk to people. Like, that's what work's about. I mean, honestly, like people get so pissed about like, well, what if what if we just did this and stayed late? I'm like, well, no, I want to go actually watch the sunset because I told my girl I was going to do that, and because we got cool dinner plans. Like that's the shit I'm gonna remember, not the stupid meeting. Like I'd rather be learning about people and hearing about, or like hearing about her day and learning about what makes the world go round.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it people?
There's some people though, I think, that like don't smoke weed. I feel like if you go your whole life without smoking weed, doesn't that trip you out though?
It does.
When you think about it, that there's some people that never smoke weed before.
It's like alcohol to me. I don't understand it. Like I'm just like, wait, what? And like people are like, well, I don't know what's gonna do to me. Like it's gonna be like basically the same thing if you took a sip of a beer. You're gonna be chill as fuck. You're gonna be happy. Especially if you're with cool people. Like I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Like you don't want to hit the fucking joint like you're fucking pro. Like you need to have somebody coaching you. You need to be around people that are chill and cool. And then you just fucking smoke, man. And then everything's fine. Like it's literally no different than like, yeah, having a sip of a beer, having a good cocktail. Anybody who's drank alcohol before, I'm like, and you haven't tried weed, you're gonna be fine. Like,
yeah, but let me ask you this though: do you think there's a learning curve for weed, like kind of there is for, I think, for alcohol? Like when you first start drinking, like you have to like learn your levels, right? I think a lot of young kids, they tend to overdrink too much when they're young, right? And then they get sloppy. But I think with weed, there's a learning curve too as well. Like you have to smoke like multiple times to like kind of figure out your levels, right?
Yeah, absolutely do. I mean, multiple forms of weed. The pen, bong versus a bowl,
Yeah.
digestible marijuana. I mean, that's a whole thing. Like, if people have all made the mistake. I think we've all naturally made. With edibles. I feel like we've all made this mistake. One, we're like, oh, we didn't take enough, and so then we take too many. And two, we end up thinking that we're kings of the world and queens of the world, and we end up taking too many edibles and drinking too much.
Yeah.
And then you either get the spins or you actually throw up.
I
I had
think
to learn those things. That was learned.
I think some people they give up early, right? Because they had like a bad trip off of marijuana like the first time or first couple times, or maybe they had like a bad trip down the road and they were like, man, I'm not smoking no more. I'm not, touching it. But I think if you give up too early, man, you give up on a medicine that can right? But it's a medicine that can make you feel better mentally, right?
You have to have a guide. You have to have a spiritual something, you know?
Yeah. When was the first time you blazed?
I was in high school. It was junior year. And I hadn't smoked up to that point because I was like, I'm an athlete, like,
Yeah.
and I wasn't smoking strong by any means, but I started to hang around with some dudes like who had played sports. They played football, played basketball, Moline, and just kind of faded off. They're like, we're gonna do our own thing. Those were still the homies. And then of course, like the knucklehead in me, I see them hanging out, going to parties. I'm over here putting in work. I got a game the next day, and I'm seeing them having fun, being introduced to alcohol. I'm like, well, what the hell is that? So there was that. That was like freshman, sophomore year. So yeah, junior, senior year, like I got past the alcohol part, got like I was still fighting the urge to go out.
Uh-huh.
But then marijuana, I'm like, oh. So back then when I smoked, it actually gave me energy. Like now it's more of a centering, balancing thing. Never needed for appetite, and obviously like just general fun. Like it just makes experiences a lot better. So back then though, it actually like woke me up. It, like no matter what it was, sativa indica, I was like actually energized by it. So I noticed that as a young dude, and not that you're looking for any more reason to be a freaking psycho with all the testosterone we have going through our bodies at like 15, like we're like turning into men, we're like but yeah, like it was around junior year, and I was with one of the homies back then. It was all like what they call ditch weed, brick weed. It was hard to get. All you could afford was nicks. People were selling nickel sacks. Nobody was smoking joints. Nobody was smoking bowls junior year. Everybody was doing blunts. If you were super ratchet, you were stuffing Black and Milds. And if you were real ratchet, you were still mixing the Black and Milds with the ditch weed. And I was just like, wait, what? Where's it? Like, how? Like, wait, who taught y'all this? Y'all are bad as hell. But yeah, so that was the first year. So I actually didn't. I was like, okay, like I can't be doing this and focusing on basketball. So I actually stopped senior year, and even some of freshman year, and freshman year in the dorms with Johnny. Just such a cool learning experience. Like it was more alcohol at that point. I mean, marijuana was always something I always like was craving and wanting because it wasn't legal then. It was still hard to get, and I didn't know anybody. I was all new to the situation. But I was taking L's left and right. Couldn't find any weed. Some girl was like, "Can you buy me alcohol?" Because I had this janky SID, bro. I went to jail for this. That's actually a good story. I had the homie actually put me on. So he moved out here to Santa Monica. So he's going to Santa Monica Junior College. He puts me onto this fake ID. This is right when digital photos dropped. So he's just like, Photoshop me a picture. I'm going to throw this on this California driver's license. $50. I'm like, hell yeah. I have my little fake ID. Shorty's like, can you get us some alcohol? I'm like, sure. Like, forget to ask her what she wants. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're like all young. I end up buying this girl Everclear, like taking L. Bro, she's like, what is this? Like, what are you trying to do, bro? I'm like, this is in Woodland Hall. I'm like, I don't know. I'm sorry. She's like, we can't drink this. But yeah, no, I had this fake ID. So, I thought it was cool, even though I was for sure lame taking L's. And it was when Rusty's was popping. So they had the Thirsty Thursdays on Rusty's. They had the 50-cent Jaeger bombs. It was cracking. I'm like, all right. I was like, I'm going to Rusty. So before then, there was this cake party off Main Street, Edwardsville, $5 a cup. My broke ass, bro. I'm like, nah, I'm only doing these 89-cent Milwaukee Tall Boys. So I had like 3 of these bitches. So I'm carrying them like, I got them on me. I had the Jinko jeans, I think. It was 2000, 2001. I'm for sure I had Jinkos. So I was like, I was like crush one, crush two, but on the third one, like they were like, time to go, we're going to Rusty's. And I was like, oh man, I got this beer. So like I was just like drinking on Main Street, Edwardsville, bro. 19 years old. As Edwardsville cop, remember the Edwardsville Cruisers? They were like blue, so like they blended in, like you couldn't even see them. Like, he hit me with the light. He was like, "Hey, you with the beer? Get over here." In hindsight, I would have ran, but then I didn't know. I was just like, okay, so I like put the beer down and like went over there. He's like, so you know you can't just like walk around with that open container, right? And I was like, no, sir, I apologize, I didn't know that. I was trying to play it real respectful. I'm thinking about like this practice that we have in 2 days. Like we had one day off. Of course, it was like Thursday, and I'm being a knucklehead. And he's like, you have some identification on you? And I froze. I was like, no, sir. He was like, well, didn't you just tell me you were going to Rusty's? And I was like, yeah, for sure. Yeah, you know, like that. Like he's like, so how did you plan on getting in? And I was like, uh, they know me. And he was like, put your hands on the fucking car, Russ. Because I was like 19. Like I definitely wasn't. Like I was like literally a baby. So I put my hands on the car. Of course, I got like $10 in my pocket, my broke ass, and then like this like California driver's license. He's like, oh, what's this? I was like, I don't know, officer. Handcuff me. He's like, you continue to lie and be an asshole. Like he's like, you're for sure going to jail. So I was like, so then this is my first time ever being locked up. So I'm in the back of the cruiser. He runs it. And he's like, this is a legit California driver's license. He's like, but why is the driver number wrong? Why does this go to some chick Kelly something something something? And I was like, I don't know. And that was it, man. I stopped talking. Felony fucking impersonating a government issued ID. So I went down to county. I was in county. I was locked up Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They recogged me on Monday, which means they get, you know, you get out on the basis that you'll come back for your court date. But yeah, I come to find out impersonating a government issued ID is a felony. Yeah, it was kind of crazy, man. Like they definitely put me on a block where everybody was chill. I mean, my cellie was actually potentially on trial for murder, but he was chill. A couple of car thieves, felony missed parole violations and things like that. And you know, it was like one of those things where like I was like, you start to realize like you can't go, like you're not going anywhere. Like that's like I don't think that actually kicks in, like because most of us haven't been in that situation. Like it was like one of those things where it was like, oh, I can't leave this jail cell.
That's crazy.
It kind of is, man. It kind of is. It's definitely an eye-opening experience. But long story short, yeah, I ended up getting out. I ended up getting unsupervised probation and got hit.
Sorry to cut you off. Like that just reminded me of something when you were saying that you're locked up and you can't go anywhere. The podcast that I just recorded yesterday, it was with this Bay Area rapper that's currently incarcerated, and he's been locked up for like the last 21 years.
So the podcast is him in jail?
Yeah.
What?
So, yeah, it's pretty crazy, man. He has a phone in his cell, but he said he had to pay a lot of money to get it. Excuse me. That just reminded me when you said you were locked up.
The way the brain changes, like such a complex machine to be slowed down for that long. Man, I can only imagine. I read the entire like Huckleberry Finn book in like a day. Like you know what I mean? Like I'm just like, that's why I realized I was like the life of crime isn't for me. Like nobody's ever gonna consider me like they're gonna be like, damn, Justin was a gangster. He put in so much work. Like I realized that like at 19, like that would never be me. I was just like, man, this is kind of whack. Like you know what I mean? Like you're sharing showers. I didn't know anything about that toilet. I was like, I'm staying away from that. I'm going pee and I'm out. It's just a different experience. And for some people, I think that institutionalism is actually like a draw. You know, I think that in some aspects, I mean, I've had people very close to me locked up for the majority of their life, and I really do think that there's something that draws them in. Not everybody, obviously.
What term did you use?
They're kind of drawn to the institutionalism, being institutionalized.
Oh, you said they're drawn to it?
I feel like in some capacity, like it's comforting to be able to have somebody take care of you. You know, it's comforting to know where your next meal is going to come from. It's comforting being around people who think like you and have that like-minded kind of mentality.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, not for everybody. I think a lot of us learn from it. I mean, I definitely did. You know, it was a different little baby felony, nothing crazy. I'm not gonna act like it was something crazy, but to wear those black and white stripes, those felony stripes, I mean, there's something to that. You know, like it definitely can be a positive motivator. Like like here, hey man, you need to pay attention to whatever is important to you at this point, and that's what I did. I mean, that's why I kind of like fell into basketball. I'm not gonna act like I didn't never try to get into Rusty's. Definitely went to Rusty's again. That shit was cracking. But I was like, let me try and impersonate a damn passport or whatever the fuck I got charged for.
Yeah.
I'm ain't doing that. We're trying to get an Excalibur next weekend. Remember that spot, dude?
Yeah.
Oh, what was the other place across the street? Remember the dude from Real World Hawaii showed up there actually, this might have been my freshman year. I think you were still. I was your 1 year behind me. There used to be they turned an old Wendy's into a club off of 157. I want to say it was
Club X, right?
Club X. Yes, Club X. They had the penny pitchers, but the pitchers were literally like folded up cardboard and they were like spilling everywhere. The dance floor was always wrecked.
Yeah.
Falling. Yeah, so I'm not gonna act like I wasn't still in the streets of Edwardsville, but it definitely made me realize that other things were more important.
Yeah, right on. Hey, I have to like get on my live stream at 10, so I have to get going. But this was fun, man. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day, man. We finally got one in, man. We've been talking about it for like weeks or even maybe a month now.
Yeah, we finally did it. Yeah, it was definitely a long time coming, man. I'm glad just to see you here, and I'm glad that I could be a part of what you're doing. It's really cool. I was watching a couple of the podcasts and shows, and yeah, it's really cool to see you kind of bring your experiences from the Midwest out here, bro, and lay it down. So much love.
Yeah, appreciate it, Justin. Do you want to give like a shout out to anybody out there in the world?
To all my friends and family, much love. Yeah, my fiance, Grace. Yeah, I love all you guys, but yeah, it's been cool sitting down with you, man. Yeah, and I appreciate it. Yeah.
The SIUE team, man.
Yeah, the SIUE squad, the 2006 SIUE basketball team, all the way up. Much love to all those dudes. Yeah, old teammates.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike, Ty, JD, AJ, Low Brand. I still talk to him. I talked to him recently, actually.
Yeah, how's he doing?
I'm gonna tell him we did this. He is doing really well, man. He's in Evansville, Indiana. He's got a newborn baby. Little man's not even a year old. Super big and long like Logan already. Got a family pretty much, a fiance or girlfriend in some capacity. So he's doing his thing.
Okay. Yeah, I might have to. Yeah, if you talk to him, let him know, and then maybe I'll get him on here one day.
Yeah, we'll have to do that.
Yeah, that'll be fun. But yeah, I appreciate you sharing your stories, and hopefully in the future we can do another one.
Yeah, we'll have to catch up. When COVID's over, catch up in real time.
Yeah,
sure.
But hit me up anytime. You have my number, so.
For sure. Yeah, man, I will.
All right, man. Well, I'll let you get going, man. Like I said, thank you for your time again, and I will stay in touch.
All right.
When COVID's over, we'll try to get some shots up.
Yeah, it's gotta happen, man. I'll take you out to the park. It's my favorite park, man. I found it pretty quickly in LA, though. I mean, there's a lot of beautiful ones, but I got mine, man. I can't wait to show you it.
Right on, Justin, man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Brandon.
All right. Thanks. Take care.
Double O T.